Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 13, 1, 3. So we have a nice stabilizing number of 4 here with 1 plus 3, and we have Michael Gregory all the way from California. So a brief introduction on Michael Gregory, but first of all, Tashi Delek, Michael, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome, and thanks for being here. So Michael Gregory has done a lot of work in the field of mindfulness and spiritual retreats. And a brief introduction I will share is he has worked with the Colorado Hospice and also the Boulder Homeless Shelter. And he's also, he's done directing roles and spiritual advising and retreats with mindfulness meditation centers and also Quiet Mind Retreat, which is located in California. Michael has also spent some years being a monk, traveling in Southeast Asia and the Himalayas. So, Michael, would you like to share with us a bit more about this very eclectic, elaborate introduction of yours?
Well, I think it's not nearly as glorious as you have painted, but I understand how it can seem a little bit separate. But I think I became a monk in 1997, something like that, and I started off in Thailand for a few years, and then Burma for a year, and doing different. Main focus in Thailand was on we call anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing, and then in Burma, main focus is on absorption practice, which in Pali we say jhana or Sanskrit dhyana, and that's my main focus. And then I moved to India and became a monk in the Tibetan tradition for a number of years, about 4.5 years, and then I came back to teach. I was asked to come back from my monastery to teach from Gyaltsab Rinpoche, and I taught in America for a few years, and then I decided to go into 3-year retreat. And we decided in our community, we made a 3-year retreat building just beneath Rimtek Monastery in Sikkim, and about 20 of us went into 3-year retreat at that time. And then I came back. This must be, I don't know, 2008 or something like that, and we started teaching again. And we have centers, MMC, or Mindfulness Meditation Centers, has, kind of centers all over, from Florida, Colorado, California, and we've had for, I don't know, like 20 years now, and I'm the director of it and founder. But now we have, I think, maybe 40 or something teachers, male, female, straight, gay, you name it, and I don't do too much. We have a 3-year retreat center up in the Sequoias right now with 20 people in 3-year retreat. This is our second 3-year retreat now, and I'm leading that as well. And then Quiet Mind that you brought up, that is just our latest. It started off just as a meditation center, another center that we have just outside of San Diego. But we opened it right when we had our first 10-day retreat, right when COVID hit. And so we made the strategic move of making the retreat center into a hotel, and which it is now. It's a hotel, and we have the meditation side as well, so people can come and do meditation. There's no cost or anything, but if they want to stay, then we have the hotel side, and it's turned more or less into a very nice hotel, which you feel like you're in. Kind of feel like you're in the Himalayas. Honestly, everything there is from Tibet and Bhutan and Nepal, and there's in just art, everywhere. And so you come and you feel you're immersed, and then we're up in the mountains just outside of San Diego. So it really, on a lake, it feels like you're probably in Pokhara, Nepal, if you've ever been to Pokhara before, just maybe 6-7 hours outside of Kathmandu up in the mountains. So it looks exactly like that. People come and who've been in Nepal and say it looks just like that, or Tibet. Yeah. So anyway, but I don't really do too much. I teach a few times a week. We have I think a few million people that follow online on our different sites and things, and it's all organic. We don't really. It's just word of mouth after 20 years. We don't really do too much. Honestly, I get up like this, and I don't really dress up. Just put on a sweater and some jeans, and some Dharma comes out of my mouth sometimes, and people seem to enjoy it. And I feel quite fortunate. We have a big audience, and people seem to be doing really well in meditation, and that's what I'm here to do. And I think, yeah, that's really about it. We have our kind of Shedra classes on Tuesday nights. We have Tantra classes on Wednesdays or Thursdays, something. And then we do retreats every month. And, but it's not really, it can sound like a lot, but it's not really a big deal, honestly. I mostly just hang around and I sleep way too much to be fair, eating and sleeping and, mostly everyone else does all the work, at this point. I'm getting older. I'm in my 50s now. So I'm kind of trying to hand the torch off at this point to all the young bucks.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating a bit more about your introduction and story. And you mentioned, the Anupanasati practices you went through in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and then also the jhana practice also as well, the wisdom practices within the Pali tradition. Before going into the Tibetan practices, you mentioned the 3-year retreat.
Yes, yeah, that's
true. So for those people who are tuning in, who want to find out more about Michael Gregory, I will include all the links to his Instagram, Facebook, Mindfulness Meditation Center website, all on the YouTube links. On Instagram, you can find him as Mind Michael, M-I-N-D, as in mind, either here or here, Mind Michael. And you can follow him also on Facebook as Michael Gregory. He has a very big following. And I think we just mentioned the other day how we have almost 90 to 100 mutual friends already. And so many people who I've also spoken to have really looked up to you for some time, your teachings and your posts and all that. So yeah, very, very grateful. I hope this will be a very beneficial for anyone watching. Yes, and one of the things, when I approached Michael, I think a couple of months ago, and we were trying to fit in a schedule also with my work schedule and with his retreats and all that. And I kind of had a few topics, to speak about. But when we had a meeting, I think 2 weeks ago now, Michael and we did a brief meeting to see what other topics we could speak about here. And he mentioned about something which caught me off guard. He mentioned about the Dalai Lama's secret temple called Lukang, which means Temple of the Water Spirits, Lu and Kang. And it just gave me, some kind of insight, just opened me up in that sense that, wow, this is actually a very interesting topic. I think it's something very unique what Michael and his company, they're doing. So we will speak a bit more about this. So first of all, Michael, would you like to share with us a bit more about this project and about the Dalai Lama's secret temple?
Yeah, I can say a few things for sure. But so if you were ever to go into long-term retreat in Kaju or Nyingma tradition in particular, you will you'll start to do you'll be introduced to practices called Salum Chokor, and these practices are called Zogram practices or completion stage practices, Samparikrama and Panakrama, generation and completion stage practices, respectively. But you will learn about channels and winds and drops and subtle body and how to not just learn about them, but you practice these things, day and night. We have all centered around something called Naro Chudru in our tradition, which is it's actually 6 dharmas of Naropa. Naro is Naropa and Chi is Dharma. Chi Dru is Chik Ni Sum Shin Ha Tru. So it's 6 dharmas of Naropa. Like mostly, I think everyone knows it as 6 yogas of Naropa. So that's our primary focus, after probably the first year and a half of retreat. And then you focus on that. And, these are enlightenment practices of inner heat and karma mudra practices and clear light and dream yoga, bardo yoga, and poa, respectively, and illusory body, sorry. And so these are our primary meditation practices that we do and that I teach in our community, especially for people who've been around a long time, who are lay people who can't really go into long-term retreat. And then, of course, everyone who's in 3-year retreat, I'm teaching these things. And, I think something that caught my attention with regard to the Lukang, this Dalai Lama's secret temple, is I've also been leading pilgrimages to Tibet for many years. I think 25 years now. And so when I bring these groups through, of course, everyone wants to go to Lhasa and see everything around Lhasa. And but our groups aren't really tourist groups. We go and meditate everywhere. It's contemplative. And our last one was 2019, right before, or almost 2020, right before COVID came out or hit, unfortunately. But one of the things that we do, of course, in Lhasa is, the Dalai Lama's winter residence, the Patala, is there. But right in front of the Patala, it was built in the 1600s. There's a lake there, and there's a little building on this lake. No one has, for the last 400 years, no one's been able to go to that. It's specifically Dalai Lama's temple, and it's for his teachers, and that's it. No one has known what's inside there until recently. And so when I started taking the groups there, I was, first I was a monk, walking around Lhasa. So, you get to meet different kinds of people that way, many different kinds of teachers, and, people start to approach you that I don't think they would approach. I think they probably would not approach the normal tourist like that. So I became friends with people from the University of Lhasa and things like that, and certain lamas around. And I was invited probably 30 years ago for the first time to go onto this little island in this pond in front of the Patala. And it was very hush hush, it was like, it was treated like, this is a really special thing to do. And now it's, many people have been, it's been opened up and popularized by Dr. Ian Baker and Thomas Laird's book called The Dalai Lama's Secret Temple. And both of them were friends of mine and have helped me a great deal in terms of our conversations and talks over the last year, and especially Dr. Baker, now who's come on as an advisor to our project. And what we're doing is we are recreating that building that's on that lake to scale, and the images inside, which I still haven't told you what's in there, but maybe some of you have read Dalai Lama's Secret Temple and you already know what's in there. But what's in there, to tie this all together, is what we do in 3-year retreat. It's a description of the 6 yogas of Naropa and Trekcho and Togol practices from Dzogchen, and especially on the 3rd floor. It's called the north wall. These practices are highlighted. But it's what the Dalai Lama has been doing, unbeknownst to many people. These are largely Dzogchen practices that are up there. So the Dalai Lama, when this was created in the 1600s for the 5th Dalai Lama, he envisioned this 3-story temple, that became a place of meditative retreat, for successive generations of Tibet's teachers, specifically the other Dalai Lamas that came after him. And it's dedicated, as you said, to the elemental forces, the Lu, the Nagas, water spirits. And so it's dedicated to this. And so the practices, when I say dedicated, the practices of Trekcho, Togol, Dzogchen, highest Dzogchen practices, Hatha Yoga, they're all dedicated, and the 6 yogas are dedicated to the Lu, to this Nagas. And so this has been going on, and Dalai Lama has, people have considered him incorrectly to be the head of the Gelug tradition. He's actually been the temporal head of Tibet, and not the head of the Gelug tradition, but everyone, just sort of considers him to be the head of the Gelug. And then, of course, when this temple opened up, people find out for the last 400 years, Dalai Lama has been practicing Dzogchen in particular. so it's quite that's why it was such a secret. That's why they call it the secret temple. It's like, and I think many people are very surprised to find out, that this relationship of His Holiness with the Nyingma tradition, the Dzogchen tradition, which publicly, I think from the 1600s on, there's been there was a real conflict between the traditions in Tibet, between the Terma and Sarma traditions, the old traditions and the new traditions of Tibet. And to find out that His Holiness was practicing the old tradition all along, I think was, quite a surprise. But that's what the paintings are on the wall, and they have been digitized. Really incredibly so. And so what we've done is we've taken the digitized prints and turned them into fine art. And so we have recreated all of the murals. And of course, the Dalai Lama is well aware of all of this. He's written books, and co-written books and authorized all of this. He really wants this out in the public domain. So I want to make that very clear, that we're not just, sort of doing something on our own here. And so what we've done is we've recreated the murals in fine art form. So to such a degree that you could not tell the difference between the murals that are on the wall in Tibet and then what we're doing. And so we're creating not just the murals, but actually the structure too, the 3-story structure that's in the middle of that lake just outside of Lhasa. To scale, we have all the architectural renderings at this point, and it's going to be exact as we can. Southern California, the building codes are a little bit different, so we have to fool around with that. But we're not just building one Lukang, we're building 3 Lukangs. And so one is we're want to make an offering to His Holiness. It's very, very important to us that we want to make an offering, a Lukang in India, and particularly in Sarnath, as a gift to His Holiness for all that He has done for teaching and preserving our lineages and practices. And so it is, that's part of that's 1/3 of it. The other one here is in Southern California. And then the other one is from the hometown of Pema Lingpa, the primary artist at the Lukhang in Bhutan, outside of Bhutan. And the government of Bhutan, some ministers there have offered us land and a building that looks almost exactly like the Lukhang, as it turns out, very oddly. I don't know how it all works out in our favor like this, but we have some blessing, I think. But in any case, so there's 3 of these that are part of this project. We already have the land in Southern California, that's 88 acres. And there's a natural spring that comes out of the ground about 1.5 gallons each minute. And so it's a perfect Naga temple. Lama Glenn was very excited about this when he heard. He said, this is the spot. And Dr. Baker just came to visit the spot just maybe 3 weeks ago. And he's, also, overjoyed, with what's happening because he spent most of his adult life lecturing on this subject. And so he's very happy to be a part of this, and we talk almost daily at this point about where the direction of all of this is going and how quickly it's manifesting. So that's that's in the very brief version, but we we do have the land and we have the buildings in Southern California, land and building in Bhutan, and now we're just looking for land in Sarnath, which is where the Buddha first taught the 4 Noble Truths, and is of course, one of the 4 main pilgrimage sites for all Buddhists. So that's a brief overview. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, very, very helpful and very insightful. I think there were several essential points you've mentioned, which, myself and many others who are watching can, in our investigations and explorations on our path, further delve into. For example, you mentioned the work created by Dr. Ian Baker and Thomas Late, the photographer, as well, about the book as well, and the photography of this Lukang, His Holiness Secret Temple as well. And also you went through about the various murals, the three levels, or the 3 floors rather. Yeah. From my personal research, some of the murals included the teachings of Longchenpa's Dzogchen teachings, and also there are some murals and art also for the 8 emanations or manifestations of Guru Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche. And you also elaborated about the Yantra Yoga as well, the 6 Dharmas or the 6 Yogas of Naropa, and all these Salung Trulko practices as well, which are showed in great detail in terms of the animation, in terms of the art, and also there are various commentaries in Tibetan, at least from what I've seen online in the digitized versions and in the books. So I'm very excited, and this is a very grand project. Considering you mentioned 3 Lukangs,
not just one.
Not just one.
Yeah, we really wanted to do this as an offering to the Bhutanese people. That this originally Pema Lingpa, the artist, is from Bumtang, and the people of Bhutan are deeply connected to these practices. So this was also very, very important to give something back and not just to receive, in the West, we love to receive all these teachings and instructions, but we wanted to offer something very, very meaningful back to both Tibetan people, especially those in exile in India, and people of Bhutan. So this is we considered necessary, not just to build something in America and appropriate everything.
Yeah, you've mentioned about 88 hectares of land in California, and also you're looking for land in Saranath, where the first turning of the wheel occurred with the Four Noble Truths, and also permission was granted in Bhutan, as you've mentioned as well. So on an ongoing grant project as well. I'm glad to hear as well. Senior advisor for this is Dr. Ian Baker, who's also helping working with you as well. And I think previously in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, you've also mentioned some of your retreats, your 3-year retreats, in some of your organizations and your programs. Also, you're working with Lama Glenn Mullin.
Glenn is Lama Glenn has been we first made contact I think 25 years ago because something really funny happened. I received a message from Zopa Rinpoche from FPMT, and he inquired because we had centers. We had 6 centers at that time around Colorado, from Denver all the way up to Aspen, and he inquired if we would like to take the Buddha's relics at that time, if I would be interested in hosting them. And that was, the Buddha's relics and Milarepa's relics and the Karmapa's relics and Dalai Lama's relics. And I mean, it was, really amazing opportunity. And he offered those to us for several weeks, and he sent several people from FPMT to help. And I was still a monk at that time. And we probably gave, I think I gave refuge maybe to several thousand people and bodhisattva vows, and bunking everybody on the head, taking the relics in these little crystal jars and putting them on people's head. And it was a very special time. It was like a really kind of big to do at that time in Colorado. But we didn't just do that. We also made contact with something that Lama Glenn was doing at that time, which was sending the monks around from Drepung Losuen. The Drepung and monks also, there were several different monasteries involved, but they all came around, and we were doing Lama dancing at all these different art centers, all around Denver, all the way up to Aspen, and we had the making sand mandalas, which you've probably seen. I suspect, I think probably most of your audience at some point has seen these things. But in any case, we were doing all of this at the same time, and Lama Glenn's son, Sean, was helping with this quite a bit. So he stayed with us for a number of weeks, and we made just had lots and lots of like you and I, just lots and lots of mutual friends and people that we knew, and so we just made a very nice relationship. And then for training people for 3-year retreat, especially 6 yogas, Lama Glenn is written more than 50 books on Buddhism, and probably 5 or 6 on the 6 yogas of Naropa in particular. And in terms of a Western teacher, is probably I would say hard pressed to find a more qualified, more knowledgeable teacher than Lama Glenn. And so we very quickly became friends and asked him if he would help train people in 3-year retreat, and very, very generously, with his time, and very kind to me. I really look up to him as a senior, definitely my senior for sure, and he's been just incredibly valuable, and in training our retreatants and our community in general, actually, the MMC community, for people kind of at the higher levels of practice.
Well, what I could also tell was in your Konchai's period as a monk, your brief period as a monk, you were not just an ordinary monk. You had all these connections, you were creating there were all these networks, there were all these karmic links, networking in a sense, planting the seeds for what we are now seeing germinating and growing and cultivating. Yeah, so that's very, very fortunate and also it's a great blessing for all of us, especially having the access or potential access towards all these temples and all these projects at the same time. So if we transition now from this part of the program of the Dalai Lama's secret temple into more of entering the sacred temple in terms of the 30, 40 years of your practice, exploring the various traditions, meditative techniques, retreats, and so on and so forth, the plethora of it. What are some of the things, for example, maybe if I may start here, during this process where you're working with this project of the secret temple, how have you evaluated and observed the processes within yourself, with your practices and all that? What are some of the experiences you are going through?
Well, I think the main thing is, I think first and foremost is for people to realize that His Holiness, and I think it's very easy to miss. He's 87 years old now, and we have to be, I think, very quite realistic about this. But I think what people don't, it's so easy to miss, or easy to just give language to, just passing words. But he has really managed in exile to hold not just the Tibetan community together, to a really great degree, and made sure that Dharma has spread, especially after 1959, all over the world. And I don't want to say single-handedly responsible, but I can say without him, none of this would have happened, for sure. The Dharma has spread everywhere, and it will be interesting to see, what happens, with the next Dalai Lama, and that's in this transition time, when there's that transition to the next Dalai Lama, to the 15th Dalai Lama. And I think people will unfortunately realize, even more to whatever degree they haven't seen it already, just how much he is responsible for holding our traditions together. And I only point this out because I think what people will see, I don't mean to be a seer or, to prophesize, but I think what people will find out that these practices are indeed very fragile and are barely hanging on, and I think that's going to come to everyone's attention rather rapidly in the transition from the 14th to the 15th Dalai Lama. And there's really no one quite like him, unfortunately. And I say that in all due respect to my teacher, His Holiness 17 Karmapa, or Chintinle Dorje, and but he's at just obviously in a different plane of leadership, and so it's going to be a big void. And what we have is an obligation, at least from my perspective, in our perspective, in our community, we have an obligation to try to preserve the culture, the history, and in particular the practices, which are really the backbone of Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, or Vajrayana. And so what we are doing in with these murals is not a museum, and I want to be really particular. When we're building these three things, we're also leaving serious practitioners there, and to be able to introduce people, so people aren't just walking around. There have been a number of exhibits that have been done quite well at the Rubin Museum with one or I think three of the murals, and also at the Wellcome Museum in London. And the Wellcome Museum in London, Dr. Baker, was able to give a number of lectures with, and also at the Rubin Museum, I think Thomas Laird gave some talks, and I know Ian again also. But mostly, people would come in and they see these murals, and of course we can always say some people have a karmic connection. They see the images, they don't know anything about Buddhism, and they get awe and they want to learn more. They want to find out why they're so inspired. Some people, it really is the case. Some people walk in and see the images, of our practices, and just get tears in their eyes, and they have no idea why. And of course, and from our perspective, we say they have a karmic connection, and things like that. But in reality, most people come and see these images, they have no idea what these things are. We need to have people there, so they're not just it's not just a 3-story museum, which is what we found out in Lhasa. All these tourists are coming through and are able to go into this building, and they have no idea, what these images are: flames coming out of people's head, and images of poet consciousness transference to another body. They have no idea, what they're seeing, and there's no one there, to help them understand. And Tibetans are also able to go. Tibetans living in Lhasa who are on pilgrimage from Amdo and Kham, from eastern and northeastern Tibet, and they come and they have a vague idea what these things are, but that's the problem. It's beautiful that people have these ideas, and maybe they can go and find a lama back home who knows something about these practices. But now this is coming to the West, and these practices are truly the enlightenment practices we call completion stage practices of our tradition. And this is at the end. You study and you train and you practice and you meditate for many years, and then there's a culmination in Vajrayana Buddhism, and that's what completion stage practices mean. It's the end of the road. It's the culmination. And these traditions that were handed down from ancient India that made its way over the Himalayas to Tibet, and from 8th to 13th centuries. This is extremely important. Traditions. I mean, and this is what I say: it's barely hanging on by a thread. It's not, not nearly as established as people who are in these communities like to think. It's really very fragile. And so what we're doing is we're preserving not just the art, but we're having people there who can explain the practices and hopefully get people involved and interested in the practices, so that it's not just a museum, but these are practice centers. And I think I want to just highlight, these are meditation centers that people can come in and just look at the images if they want, but they are encouraged to go further, and they will be given manuals and books and teachings. And if they want to try, then, we give them plenty of opportunities to go further if they wish. So going from the outer, the imagery, to the inner, to the practice, and then the innermost, of course, is actually taking the time to go into retreat, away from country and family and friends, and really do the hard work required of renunciation and loving kindness, and to stay with oneself, and to walk away, from worldly things, the sort of high-speed life that people have now, and internet, and lots of activity, and walking away from things that can never provide ultimate happiness. And so that's what we call these sort of three levels of outer, inner, and innermost practice, like that.
Yes, the outer, inner, and the secret practices. Yeah, thank you for elaborating, this process of how the secret temple can be very invaluable in that sense, like a precious gem you find along the shore, the beach shore, amongst all the grains of sand, you find this precious gem. And sometimes we just do not know what it means or how we can utilize this. So I think this is a very beneficial project. And you also highlighted several times, it's not just a museum, it's not the Rubin or so on and so forth. It's also an educational center in a sense for, knowledge to be applied as well and integrated. That's why you have the retreats, and you have all these programs and courses and lessons and so on and so forth. So let's say for someone who's just tuning in for the first time today, and they're not very familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, or even some of the work you're doing, or some of the things we are speaking about, how would you, and you have led many retreats and mindfulness events over the years, how would you share with them some of the methods or any kind of tips or advice for people who would like to engage more in this sacred temple within them?
Well, I mean, if you're coming from the place that they have no background, maybe very light background, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. Then, this isn't really the place to start, when we talk about the Lukang, the place to start, and this is, it's the basis of Dharma, and the basis of Vajrayana is Mahayana, and the basis of Mahayana is Theravada. And for all of those who've taken Samaya, Vajrayana Samaya commitment, to the nature of mind, and to the gurus, and then Mahayana, who, your commitments are to Bodhisattva vows. Everything underlies this, Theravada in practice, and it is disparaging, to say otherwise, and it's part of actually the Bodhisattva vows, not to, that we see these three tiers. And every great teacher, Khyentse Rinpoche, Dudjom Rinpoche, everyone, says the same thing, and it's only, when we have an issue, that there's a lot of people who come to these practices who enter in, unfortunately, in my estimation, enter in at the high level, and they don't know they don't really have a foundation in Mahayana, or really a very good foundation in Theravada. And those things are absolutely will change the very direction of your course, of your spiritual practice, and your understanding of Dharma and what it is that you're experiencing. And mostly important, create even a tremendous empathy and compassion for others if everyone will just slow down and really develop a very strong foundation. So that's what I would recommend. And that strong foundation, in terms of the meditation practice and not just study, is going to be mindfulness of breathing. There's no question about it. It's what it was the Buddha's practice that he said he attained enlightenment with. When his son Rahula was sick and came to him and said, "Dad, I think I'm dying." What practice did the Buddha offer to his dying son? It wasn't it's not a mystery. It's in the canon. He offered mindfulness of breathing. And I've met plenty of people who don't know the four foundations of mindfulness, who don't know mindfulness of breathing, who are practicing, tantra, they say, and very high practices. And it doesn't take much. They almost always crash and burn. And then, I find this a lot, people coming to me and saying, "Hey, I was doing these very high practices, and these protector practices, and I don't know, they've been at this, and it's very sad to say, but sometimes they've somehow managed to hang in there 15, 20 years. They're kind of middle-aged Dharma practitioners, and, very humbly, come to me and say, what am I doing wrong? I'm not enlightened yet. I'm not realized, and I kind of wonder sometimes, do I even know what I'm doing? And they go to the meetings, and they do some offerings, and really very unsure of what they're doing, and they miss these practices, these foundational practices over and over again. That's what I've come to see. And so we encourage them to go on, weekend retreats and 10-day retreats where, we're really not doing, Vajrayana practices, in many of our retreats, like the one coming up that we have in September. I mean, I'm doing literally, and I enjoy it very much, teaching Four Noble Truths, and introduction to meditation, mindfulness of breathing. I never consider myself above, because people ask me why I'm sharing this with you. Like, why are you teaching that, at this point, in this stage, like as though that these are basic elementary practices. And I always know when people ask me that they don't know those practices. As soon as they say to me, that why are you teaching these, sort of basic practices? That's how I know they don't know, what they're doing. It's almost a dead giveaway, unfortunately. I hate to say, but it's true. It's like, I always challenge people. I said, if it's so basic, then why don't we sit together for 10 days? Why don't you come? Why don't you be quiet just for 10 days? No malas, no mantras, no yogas. We're just going to sit for 10 days. How's that? And, and with a little bit of bravado sometimes, oh, okay. And I said, well, I'm serious. Let's do it. And we have 10-day retreats that we do several times a year. And, next thing day 2, day 3, they can't sit still. They're in pain. Their thoughts are going, as they're supposed to. The thoughts are going crazy, emotions going crazy, desire going crazy. And they get to find out, that their understanding of Dharma is a little bit weighted toward the top end, toward enlightenment practices, but it doesn't work for them because they don't have a foundation. It's like building a roof of a house, but forgetting the walls and the foundation of the house. If I can say, like, Theravada is the foundation and the walls are Mahayana and the roof, is up here, and that's the issue that we find. So I emphasize all three yanas over and over and over again, and keeping the precepts and keeping bodhisattva vows to the best of your ability. Of course, I'm not perfect either, but keeping precepts and vows and samaya, but one is built on the next.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, if I'm not wrong, I think Dr. Alan Wallace, or Lama Alan Wallace, also mentioned something similar, because he leads a lot of retreats about the 4 applications or foundations of mindfulness. And I think in the Tibetan tradition, it's not as, I wouldn't say it's not as established, but it's not, yeah. So, he's also mentioned that, and I began to also see how it can also be lacked in some areas, but it's there in some way, but I think it's usually overlooked because it's the Tibetan practices are also built up, and for this say, for people who in this lifetime came across the Dharma or in a not so distant lifetime encountering the Dharma and jumping into this so-called higher practices without the foundation. Also, as what you mentioned, it's very critical to have this the walls in the house, properly firmed and stabilized and foundation. So for those who are tuning in, we have Michael Gregory here, and we are about to wrap up the episode. But I will include the links for his Instagram, Facebook, and his organization's websites and all that. Mind Michael, MIND Michael on Instagram, and also mindfulness meditation centers and quiet mind retreats. I will include the links here. And he mentioned something really interesting as well, which I agree. For those people who are familiar with Buddhism to some extent, and even for people who are not, what are some of the practices? So he's mentioned anapanasati, which is mindfulness of breathing. There are some of the the Buddhist tradition can offer a lot of this kind of guidance and techniques towards living a life with more happiness, with more calmness, equanimity. So we have the mindfulness of breathing, and we also have the Satipatthana Sutras teachings as well on the 4 applications or foundations of mindfulness. So these are some things which we can look upon. We can look up at programs, and he is also running programs at his retreat centers for those who are going by in California and areas in Boulder and whatnot. So, Michael, thanks for joining us today on this episode. Any last words from you before we wrap up today's episode?
Yeah, I think I would like to leave like this. I think regardless of your practice, whether it's stable or intermittent, and your understanding that the main thing is to be a kind person, and to leave each day, I think the main thing we call bodhichitta is the main thing, and which is the heart of loving kindness and compassion and empathy for others. And if you can't do anything else, at least this, is sort of the bare minimum idea of Buddhism. Because we've talked a lot about many different subjects today, but if people were to ask, in a word, what is Dharma? What is Buddhism all about? And you can say very simply, it comes down to this one thing we call bodhicitta. And it is the mind of realization, which is represented in the world as love and kindness and compassion and we call sympathetic joy, mudita, for others, being happy for other people's happiness. And this is these main qualities: love, compassion, equanimity, and joy. This is the main way. And if you can't do anything else, you just focus on this, just being a better person. And what does that look like? It means that you're able to go to sleep at night, and then look back at your day and really to feel, each day that you're trying. Maybe always not perfect. That's a given, but you're able to leave each day, this world and believe that you have, before you go to sleep, that you've made the world a better place, that your life is meaningful, that you have a purpose, and you never give up on this. Every day you wake up and like, why am I here? What am I doing here? And to have this feeling before you go to sleep that this day was well lived, and that you can go to sleep with a clear conscience and peace in your mind and peace in your heart. So that's all I have. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. So thank you, Michael, once again for collaborating on this. And I hope this episode will be up on YouTube and hopefully bring, in the current and in the future, viewers who will find something meaningful and useful from this to brighten their practice and to brighten their days. So I will include all the links for Michael's work in the YouTube description here, and also the descriptions on my social media like Facebook and Instagram. Please feel free to connect with him on social media and follow his projects. And on his social media like Facebook and Instagram, he includes a lot of teachings and phrases and quotes and instructions, if I might call it, on his pages as well. So it can be also something really profound to look at, when you're just scrolling on whether it's a mindful day or a mindless day, it doesn't, but it brings upon something within you, it sparks something. So thank you again for everyone who's tuning in and for Michael to join us. And please also subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and I'll be having more guests in the next couple of months. Similar topics, some different, some interrelated, but all interconnected. Good night.
Good night. Touchy. Yeah.